Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Today I'll be your judge, your jury, and your analyst. And today we analyze the big, huge, super thick Diggersby. Diggersby is a beast. And if you feel like saving a Bunnelby from the bowels of homelessness, catching all this candy, and then turning it into one of the bulkiest mons in Great League, well, good luck with that. If Diggersby's been out, but the good thing is Bunnelby's been out for a while now, so you likely do either one have enough candy, or two, you already have one built, and you're considering building it and using it for the Great League Remix for Season 8, because statistically, it is the most powerful Pokemon. Now, this is a full analysis on Bunnelby, and whether or not this beast of a destroyer, or Bugs Bunny, whichever one you want to call it. I call it Bugs Bunny just because, you know, it looks like Bugs Bunny. It just has, like, a mustache, and it looks like a fat, like, alcoholic version of Bugs Bunny. That's what I really call it. Anyways, as you see here, we have Diggersby. Diggersby is a normal and ground type. It's obscenely thick, it has a ridiculously high stamina stat, which is why it's so freaking valuable, and high defense. This insane amount of bulk, along with the ability to along with its stats of basically really great moveset in Mudshot, and Fire Punch and Earthquake, it has amazing coverage, and because of the way things are banned, statistically, it is actually the most powerful Pokemon for the Great League Remix in Season 8. Now, being a ground and a normal type Pokemon, there's actually a lot of things that can kill Diggersby. As you see here, it is weak to fighting, grass, ice, and water. So, however, it does have a lot of resistances. It resists electric type attacks, like Wild Charge is the biggest name to really come to mind. Ghost type attacks, which is what it resists Lick. It resists Lick. It also resists Shadow Claw, which is why it's so high up, is because it's able to take on those Sableyes. It's also able to give other like normal type Pokemon like Snorlax or Lickitung, just because, you know, their fast move is Lick, and give them a really hard time. Also, Jellicent also comes to mind when it comes to resisting ghost type moves. It resists poison, so the poison buff doesn't do much again, and it also resists rock types. But the reason why Diggersby is so incredibly powerful is, again, its obscene bulk, and also having one of the most powerful fast moves in the game in Mudshot, and an incredibly diverse and powerful charge moveset. Now, the thing about Diggersby, it is not cheap. It is cheap in a sense for a second move. However, it's not cheap for the fact that you can power up to near level 50. Which is an obscenely large amount of dust. Not only do you need the Stardust, however, you also need the XL candy. Because of that, Diggersby XL has an incredibly high barrier to entry. Now, it is statistically the most powerful Pokemon. However, is it really that good? Or is it going to be a target for everyone that's going to literally be like, please have a Diggersby, and then they're going to counter it? Let's find out. Alright, as I always say, please consider contributing to pvpoke.com. So if you go to the rankings, as you see here, this is the ranking analysis for Diggersby for the Great League Remix. And of course, I don't even need to look at it or scroll down. It is the #1 Pokemon statistically. It does really well against Jellicent, Nidoqueen, Registeel, Wigglytuff, and Lickitung. So the reason why it does so well against Wigglytuff is because 2 Shield Charm strats don't do too well against Diggersby just because of Diggersby's bulk. Registeel, of course, because you have Fire Punch and Earthquake. Nidoqueen, because you resist Poison. And, of course, Jellicent, because you resist Ghost. Now, keep in mind, this is the 1-Shield scenario, so it might, depending on how the match goes, your opponent can have a really slick strategy, sacrifice their lead, and pretty much have their back row terminate Diggersby. Because as you see here, Diggersby actually has a really humongously bad matchup against Shadow Champ. Obviously, anything that punches Diggersby in the face is going to give it a hard time. Wishcast, even Cresselia, just because Cresselia is Grass Knot. Mandibuzz, because it resists Earthquake as well as the Mudshot damage. And Obstagoon, just because Obstagoon with counter is able to basically, well, it has counter. That's pretty much most part. Especially if it boosts, Obstagoon will give you a nightmare for Diggersby. However, Diggersby does really well for several reasons. It takes out the Ghost archetype. It also takes out the Poison archetype. And its main reason in pure existence is to kill Steel types, which is basically why Registeel is its big target. However, the thing you have to worry about is that Registeel can still kill you in certain scenarios, so just keep that in mind. Now in the lead, as you see here, Diggersby is the #1 lead. It is the most powerful one. As you see statistically, it also has an incredibly high stat product, being very strong in every position, but the only problem is really the low fast move pressure as well as being inconsistent. The reason why it's inconsistent is because a lot of times you're gonna depend on Earthquake just because Fire Spin without stab doesn't do a lot of damage. Unless you're gonna hit something like Obama Snow, which is double weak to fire. For this reason, this is why Diggersby is kind of, even though it has a tremendous amount of bulk, it doesn't do a lot of damage. It's pretty much like Lickitung without the charge move pressure, because Lickitung has Lick. But Diggersby does so well statistically just because it counters a lot of top meta picks, despite the fact that it is meta itself. As you see here, Diggersby does take out Jellicent. It doesn't take out Pidgeot. It does take out Nidoqueen, Magnezone, Obama Snow. Obama Snow still has a strong matchup against Diggersby depending on the shield scenario, but that Fire Punch gives you a huge chance against something like Obama Snow. And that's why, as you see here, it beats literally, like, it has a chance against, like, the top 7 or 8. And unless it's Shadow Champ, it could also beat Beedrill, and Pachirisu, just because electric types are weak to ground. However, the one thing it's weak against, like we saw, Ice types, which is why Cast Form, as well as once you go to the bottom of the conundrum, Water types start being more popular simply because they can defeat Diggersby, as you see here. However, it's still an incredibly powerful lead. One of the best leads, and if you practice with it, you'll probably see it a lot in the lead because it's best used as a shield breaker, and then you sack Diggersby and then send it out. Unless it has a really terrible matchup like Shadow Champ. However, there's also other strategies that can give you a disadvantage. For example, I've had a Jellicent sack strat where I'll sacrifice Jellicent, come out in the back, farm Diggersby, and then annihilate my opponent in the back row. I've done that before and have had win cons because of that. However, Diggersby is still an incredibly powerful switch, being at #4 and takes out what I mentioned before. It can also take out Sableye. Sableye's return, yeah, that's kind of like the reason why Sableye isn't really, even though you do beat it convincingly, the problem with Sableye is that return still does a ton of damage, and Foul Play can still chunk. So keep in mind, because you have Fire Punch and Earthquake, it's a little rough. So if you look at the exact matchup against Sableye, that's one of the bigger concerns. Because if you look at it, yes, you have really convincing matchups. However, Sableye can still do a decent amount of damage depending on, like, if you shield returns or not. Or if they don't shield your Fire Punch. Because as you see, Fire Punch only does 20 points of damage. If it's a Sableye XL, Sableye doesn't have a huge threat. It's not a huge threat against Sableye if they call your Fire Punches. The Earthquake is pretty much what's going to make them shield. But if they call your Fire Punches, it's still a toss-up. As you see here, Foul Play still does a decent amount of damage, and if they do hit return on you, return will still do a huge chunk. But most of the time you can go just straight Foul Play, as you see here. Foul Play still does a decent chunk of damage, and then your opponent can farm you down. So Diggersby and Sableye is one of those, like, really weird matchups where Sableye can possibly, your opponent can set up plays with Sableye. If you lose the lead and lock it into a Machamp or Manabuzz, you're probably going to die. Just keep that in mind. Also, because Obstagoon does have counter, etc., it does have a strong matchup against you. And ironically, even though Obama Snow does take heavy damage from Fire Punch, as you see here, Obama Snow is still able to beat you in the 2 and the 1 shield scenario, as you see here. So it's not even completely safe, to be honest with you. Yes, as you see here, Fire Punch does a ton of damage. However, Ball Out, Obama Snow, if you didn't vote for it, as you see, it can Ball Out against you. So that's some things to really keep in mind, that some safe switches or back rows can lock Diggersby into a really bad matchup. Registeel can also still beat Diggersby in the closer. As you see, Focus Blast still does 106 points of damage. So if Registeel has shield advantage, or if you have enough chip damage on Diggersby, you could still get yeeted by a Focus Blast. Focus Blast threatens more in a sense now, just because Focus Blast got its original attack value. For those of you that don't know, Registeel was actually nerfed at one, well, it's still nerfed because Flash Cannon still is nerfed. However, Focus Blast got back its attack value. 10 points of damage doesn't seem like a lot. However, if you're trying to come to a close scenario, as you see here, Focus Blast wipes out a lot of HP. It will put you in the yellow, and that's a long part of the bar. So if a Registeel has energy advantage, it can still give your opponent win cons if you get hit by a Focus Blast. So just keep that in mind. Because of so many charge moves, and the fact that Diggersby really has to pressure with its highest energy move as an Earthquake, it makes it a little bit tricky to play in this meta. In the closer, Diggersby is still number 5. However, as you see here, in the closer, assuming that there's no energy, etc., it can still wipe out a ton of combinations, like I said, if you're able to get to Earthquake. However, in the closer, just keep in mind, there are things like Frostless with Avalanche, Obstagoon, of course. Wish Cash with Blizzard is going to annihilate you. Yes, Daddy Cash is going to take your money, even if you have a Diggersby. Also, things like Cresselia and Mandibus also give you a hard time. Diggersby, since it's so powerful, so many people might actually use a lot of Mons or a line that just strictly counters Diggersby. And that can be very hard for Diggersby's user. However, if you love Diggersby, it's still really freaking good, as you see here. Alright, now here's the PvPoke.com Matrix. As you see here, we have a level 50 Diggersby. I also put level 40 here, in case some of you have a level 40 and are like, I want to use a level 40 Diggersby. Unless it's the mirror match, I don't really think it matters too much as far as IVs wise. You're going to use a 50 because of the bulk. However, 40 and 50 might not be necessarily a bad idea, because as you see here, Diggersby, nearly a perfect Diggersby, qualifies. You can max out level 40 and it max out in your 1500. So the question is, will the thickest Diggersby win, or will the Diggersby with a higher attack stat win? So we're just going to figure that out right now. So as you see here, we have the 2-shield scenario, Great League Remix meta to the right. I hit battle, and as you see here, you're going to beat a lot of things, but however, the one that, like I mentioned, the 2-shield is kind of rough. As you see here, you're going to lose against Obama Snow, even though your Fire Punch, yes, Fire Punch is incredibly powerful. However, Obama Snow can go to town against you, Kiska the Weather Ball. Rainy Cast Form gives you a hard time. Charizard, Cresselia, Dugong, Driplim. Driplim is probably one of your worst nightmares, just because Driplim has Icy Wind. So it has a super effective move against you. Yes, it does resist Hex. However, it can beat you straight Icy Wind. So Driplim is dangerous. Frostless, Shadow Gramble. Yes, you can get Charm down. Shadow Charm is excessively powerful. And in the 2-shield, whether or not you have a 40 or 50, you're still going to die. So that's what makes it really interesting. Let's just hope your opponent doesn't have a Shadow Gramble. However, Diggersby does do well against a lot of combinations. You're going to die to Machamp, of course, because of fighting. Mandibuzz resists your charge move. Well, but it resists, basically, you don't get stabbed with Fire Punch and Earthquake. It resists both Earthquake and Mudshot, which is why Mandibuzz had a strong matchup against you. Obstagoon also has another one, just because of the fact that Obstagoon does a lot of... Obstagoon has counters, so you both have 2-turn moves. It has a super effective move. That's basically the justification. Also, Obstagoon can take a few Fire Punches. And the rating is just so strong that even if you were to... You could try to land an Earthquake, but 9 times out of 10, Obstagoon is still going to do a great job against you. As you see here, a 405 rating is not that great. Anything close to 500 is a close matchup. 400 is not a close matchup, so because it's such a big losing match, as you see, even Earthquake will do more than half, but even then, a Obstagoon can beat you in the 2-shield by just straight shielding, and it'll be perfectly fine. So, it's worse if the Obstagoon boosts against you. Pidgeot, of course, I don't need to say anything. Pidgeot's a flying type. Resists you. You lose against every fighting type. You'll lose against every fighting type. Flying types. And you're prone to 2-shield charm strats, as you see here. In the 2-shield, things like Wigglytuff, as well as, like we saw, Gramble can take you out. Clefable, you can take out Clefable just because Clefable doesn't have as much bulk as Wigglytuff. However, you can get Wigglytuff 2-shielded, so just keep that in mind. You do beat Zweilous, Stunfisk, Sableye, Registeel, etc. You're also going to beat Beedrill, Sunny Castform, because ground beats fire. And the thing about it is, what makes it really interesting, if you look in the 2-shield scenario, the 40 and 50, they don't have a huge difference. You beat what you're supposed to beat. And there's not a lot of close matchups, with one exception. As you see, level 40, whoever has the higher CP in the mirror match is going to win. So this is why against a level 40 versus level 50 Diggersby, you can beat it with a perfect Diggersby will beat a level 51, as you see here. So 40 will beat 50 just because of CMP. So just keep that in mind. It's a very dicey matchup in the mirror. But this also means a level 40 is viable. So you don't even necessarily need to have a level 50. But we'll figure it out as we go down shields. Again, so the key things about the 2-shield, you could still lose the 2-shield charm strat. Whoever has a higher IV or higher attack, of course, wins CMP, is going to beat you in the mirror match, most likely. And, of course, you lose against flyers. Basically, anything that resists ground, and ice types give you a hard time in the 2-shield. In the one shield, things don't necessarily change too much. As you see here, 40 and 50 are basically the same thing. When I looked at this before, I was really surprised at how 40 and 50 pretty much operate the same way in the Great League Remix. As you see here, you're still going to beat and lose what you normally lose against. Again, flyers like Charizard, ice types, water types, etc. Basically, if you go back to the Go Hub chart, whatever you're weak against, 9 times 10, you're most likely going to lose against it. As you see here. Now, the thing is, what makes it so great in the one shield is that you're able to defeat a whole bunch of different combinations. For example, Excavalier, Ferrothorn, Fire Punch, because it's double super effective, even though Ferrothorn does power whip you to death. You're also able to beat Gramble in the one shield. In the one shield, you can take out Hypno, you can take out Jellicent, even though just because you resist Hex, of course, straight Bubble Beam Jellicent won't give you a hard time. Be careful in this scenario, though, because against Jellicent, as you see, -4 is a lot. So, yes, you have a strong matchup against Jellicent. However, you're going to be down a lot of, as you see here, you're going to come out of this minus, like, without basically having your entire attack stats basically like toast. So your opponent can choose to comfortably eat whatever comes in the back, and they'll be perfectly fine. So just keep that in mind, that being like, it could straight bubble beam you. You win, but you're going to be down a lot of attack. So just keep that in mind, that you can get farmed because of strategies like that, where Jellicent they'll essentially sacrifice their lead, and then they'll try to farm down your Diggersby and take you out, which I've actually used in practice. So just keep that in mind. Of course, you're going to lose against fighters. You're going to lose against flyers, like I mentioned before. However, in the one shield, you can beat Lickitung. So in the one shield, you'll beat Lickitung just because you resist Lick. Again, you can beat Jellicent. You're going to absolutely destroy Melmetal, Mew, Munchlax. Well, you resist Lick, so that's why you beat them. That's the basic thing about it. You also beat Poison types. Ninetales because it's a fire type. Berserker because it's steel. So anything that steel is super effective, or Earthquake or Fire Punch will be super effective against, most of the time you will beat them. However, you're going to lose against everything you're weak against. Of course, like I mentioned before. The basic thing is, and what makes it really easy to keep track of Diggersby, if it's grass, if it's ice, if it's water, or if it's grass, or if it's fighting type, you're probably going to lose against it 9 times out of 10, as you see here, unless you have an obscene advantage. The ratings are close, so that doesn't mean you won't be able to, even if it does have, like, something, a Cresselia, 493 isn't a bad rating. Cresselia beats you with 2 HP left. With 2 HP left. So, a Diggersby, if you're able to get some moves through, or if you have energy lead, you can possibly flip some matchups, but they're not exactly close. Now, the good thing is, in the one shield, you could actually beat Charmers. As you see here, we beat Wigglytuff, and you could also beat Shadow Gramble. So, the one shield kind of flips over. But, as you see here, what pretty much beats you will still beat you unless you have an energy lead, because a 500 isn't real. As you see, the closer you are to 500, the more in danger you are of. It's a close matchup, but it's not that close. And as you see here, Diggersby in the one shield, as you go down shields, is still very powerful against mainly what it's supposed to beat. So it's not that special. However, let's take a look at the closer. The closer, Diggersby, is an absolute destroyer. As you see here, because Earthquake and Fire Punch has so much coverage, you're able to blast through a lot of different combinations. In the closer, you're even able to beat this is barely beat Lickitung with level 50 or level 40. As you see, the matchups are really close. You're also able to beat some fighters. As you see with Shadow Champ, assuming it doesn't have any energy, it doesn't have a lot of energy, or you don't have chip damage on your Diggersby, you can beat things like Shadow Champ. You can also beat other fighters like Surfetched, as you see here. Unfortunately, flyers still are able to take your head off, and Daddy Cash can actually beat you in the closer because Blizzard will yeet you to oblivion. So just keep that in mind. Also, what makes it really interesting is that in the zeros, level 40 has a more convincing matchup against Charmers than level 50, which is pretty hilarious. So there isn't even too much of a justification to go after level. Well, that's just for Wigglytuff, not for Gramble. Other than that, generally, if it's a Frostless, if it's a Charizard, if it's a Ready Cast Form, basically anything you're weak against, you still die against it. So, even no matter what shield scenario you really have, Diggersby doesn't have a huge it doesn't really have a huge one-up against its weaknesses. As you see here, They still beat you, not super hard, but they still beat you pretty hard. That's why the allure of it in the zeros is kind of tricky. Now, if you have shield advantage, that changes. Of course, when you give something shield advantage, it's very powerful. However, in Diggersby's scenario, even in the 1 to 0s, you can lose to Rainy Castform, you can lose to Diggersby, Drifblim, Frostless, still lose to Frostless, Mandibuzz, Mantine, Pidgeot, basically, for the most part, Flyers. To be honest, yeah, for the most part, its Flyers are really thick ice Pokemon like Dugong. Or Rainy Castform, just because it water guns you to death. And if you're up 2 to 0s, you'll beat most of your competition, as you see here. You'll beat most of your competition, but you still fall to Drifblim and Mandibuzz, Mantine, and Pidgeot. This is what's concerning, because even if you do have shield, even if you do have shield advantage, there's some things in here you just can't beat, i.e. Dugong, Drifblim, Mandibuzz, Mantine, Pidgeot. The Flyers are very powerful against you in this meta. In the 2 to 1s, yes, you have a strong advantage, but things like Tropius, the Flyers can still beat you, basically. Mandibuzz, Mantine, Pidgeot, Tropius, Cresselia could even beat you. That's a close matchup, but it could still beat you. Rainy Castform, which is why Rainy Castform is really freaking good. That's why it was in my top budget teams. And Charizard. So just keep in mind, there's a lot. The good thing is you can now beat Obama Snow with Fire Punch, but other than that, like having shield advantage, Flyers still give you a really hard time, as you see here. That's why Flyers are such fantastic save switches, or just in general, are still part of the top teams for the Great League Remix. And that's GG's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, but Diggersby, in a nutshell, is still really powerful. The issue is a lot of picks from before, like in the previous Great League Remix, like Frostless, Obama Snow to come for a few, even Wish Cash, have really strong matchups against Diggersby. In fact, I can see a lot of people using Diggersby and getting countered purely because there's a lot of picks out here, or a lot of combinations of picks, like Machamp, Mandibuzz, especially the Flyers to come a few, that are really good against Diggersby. What really limited Diggersby's use back in the day when the original Great League Remix was out was basically Vigoroth and, of course, Altarius. But with that being said, there's still the big problem with Diggersby in the Great League Remix is if you don't have one yet, it's not really worth powering up. As you see on the Matrix, there's a lot of things that can still counter you even if you're down shields. I've practiced a lot with Diggersby and try to make teams with it, and unless you have it in the lead and you don't have, if your opponent doesn't have like a Mandibuzz in the back, you're good. But if it does have one in the back, you're kind of screwed. And as you saw in the analysis, Mandibuzz and a lot of Flyers are able to beat poor Diggersby down shields. Your worst nightmare is if you see a Drifblim, because Drifblim is just going to straight Icy Wind you to oblivion. So I'm not saying that Diggersby is not a great pick. I'm just saying be very aware that if you don't have one, or if you don't have one powered up, you're probably not missing out on a lot of other viable picks. Is it the most powerful Mon in this cup? I do think so statistically. However, there are a lot of things out there that can kill Diggersby, and like I said, are likely going to target Diggersby just because there's a lot of things that can beat it down shields, like I said, especially the Flyers. And there's a whole bunch of Mons out here that are viable, especially the ones they used from before. Like I mentioned, Frostless still does really well against Diggersby, and Frostless was a top pick in the prior Great League Remix. So because of that, you might want to be very careful if you decide to use Diggersby. Still really good, but just keep in mind, don't be surprised if you watch this video that you're seeing a bunch of Machamps or Mandibuzzes flying around purely for the sheer reason of, say, it's bunny season, or to put this exact, it is Diggersby season. Anyways, I hope this really did help you out. Again, another thing you should be very aware of, if you do use Diggersby, you can get 2 shield charmed your way through, so just keep that in mind as well. Also, if you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe. Liking and subscribing is totally free, super helps out the channel, and for all of you that are already subscribed, I really do appreciate you, and hopefully this video does help you out. Diggersby's a great idea, however, if you don't have one powered up, it's not going to be like the greatest thing since sliced bread just because of everything I mentioned. There's a lot of things that can be Diggersby on here, a lot of prior things that can be Diggersby, and Diggersby is a normal type, so that means Focus Blast or punching it to death does exist as in Machamp / Registeel. So that being said, if you decide to use it, just be really careful, because a lot of people, I can foresee it being targeted a lot, especially in practice, so just keep that in mind. However, again, please like and subscribe, totally free, helps me out with 3K sub count, and all you have to do is, as you see to the bottom right, all you have to do is put your mouse over it, and the sub tab will pop up, and you can easily subscribe from there. Other than that, whichever one you decide to do, good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.
Charmander!